Liv mentioned, the Life as a Trainee panel is sort of to give you like a good insight into what being a trainee is like and what you can essentially expect as a future trainee solicitors yourselves. And something that we do want to get across, I think, that we sort of have throughout the day is that wherever your background is, you have a real shot of career in law. And then before we get started, I would like to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves shortly. So Alice Spencer, if we can start with you and then move down.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming today. My name's Alice Spencer. I'm a trainee solicitor at Trowers and Hamlins, and in the second year of my training contract, approaching qualification now. I'm currently in the governance team here in Manchester. In terms of my journey into law, I was a first-gen uni student, the first in my family to study law. Studied law undergraduate level at Newcastle University, secured a training contract after my third year, and then went on to do the LPC full-time for a year, and now my training contract.
Thank you. And Alice Ferguson.
Hi, yeah, I'm in the Manchester office in Ward Hadaway. I'm currently in social housing litigation. I'm in my second year. I've also done corporate and housing seats. Similarly, I also was the first in my household to go to uni. I didn't study law, I actually did a law conversion and the LPC, and now I'm here.
Thank you for coming. And Sam?
Hi everyone, my name's Sam Dalton. I'm a second year trainee at Gateley Legal. In terms of my route into law, I also didn't do a law degree. I studied aerospace engineering many moons ago at Liverpool University. I then decided to change to law later down the line, so I did the GDL and then the LPC. After the LPC, I started working as a paralegal at Gateley in the corporate team before starting my training contract last September. My first seat was in property litigation. I then did pensions, and now I'm in my third seat, and I'm on secondment at Man City Football Club.
Perfect, thank you. And yeah, let's just jump straight into what life as a trainee is really like. Starting with Alice Ferguson, what surprised you most about your first week?
I found the training really in depth. So the first couple of weeks was really helpful because I'd worked in jobs in the past where it wasn't so. And so kind of getting onto a case management system, it wasn't a huge shock. I was also quite surprised at how quickly the fee earning work began. You know, you had your handover from the previous trainee and you basically got to it. But I did feel very supported by my team. I never felt under pressure. They were always really good for answering questions and guiding me. But I think that was the biggest surprise, just getting stuck into it.
Thank you very much. And Sam, what is it that trainees do exactly at a law firm?
Well, as I'm sure you're all aware, during your training contract, you are rotated around different departments. Usually it's 4 across the 2 years. They're called seats. And I suppose the purpose of that is to give you exposure to a wide range of practice areas, so like corporate, commercial, employment, litigation, for example. In terms of the actual work that you do, it's a lot of contract drafting, contract reviewing, legal research, attending client meetings. And yeah, it's a really rewarding experience because you're given a lot of responsibility from day one. I mean, you obviously are supervised throughout, but you know, you're given a lot of remit to sort of take ownership of that work. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And building up on that, Alice Spencer, can you tell me more about how your day as a trainee is structured? Who do you work with, and how are these teams sort of structured?
Yeah, of course. So it sounds really cliche, but no 2 days as a trainee are really ever the same. It really varies depending on which department you're in and where you're at in your training contract. But a typical day for me, our minimum sort of contracted hours are 9 to 5. Those are the hours I would say I probably typically work, but during busier periods, you know, you might work a little bit longer than that. Although I would say the work-life balance at Trowers has been really good. You know, working long hours, working late is generally discouraged, so that's a real positive. Typically, I'll start in the mornings by, you know, logging on, checking my emails, any tasks that I've got to do that day, and drafting up a to-do list. Might have meetings sprinkled throughout the day. And beyond the legal work itself, there's lots to get involved in, sort of extracurricularly. So, for example, getting involved in our EDI committees, social events. We have sports teams to get involved with as well. As a group of trainees, we like to meet up after work sometimes. You know, go out for drinks, things like that. So, lots to get involved with, and every day is sort of structured differently, which keeps it nice and refreshing. In terms of the people that I work with, again, that really varies depending on what team you're in. But in my time at Trowers, I've been able to work, with people of all levels, from paralegal up to partner, and not just in the Manchester office as well, across all our offices, including internationally. So you get a lot of exposure to, working with all different types of people, different working styles. It's very varied. So yeah, lots to get involved in. It's really good.
Perfect, thank you. And following on from the law firm as a business partner panel this morning, on the junior side, Alice Ferguson, can you tell me how involved you are in the business development side?
Yeah, so at Ward Hadaway, it's really actively encouraged to get involved in business development and to practice networking. So early on to the training contract, you will get a guest speaker come in and essentially talk to you about business development and how you might approach that. And there's also a LinkedIn committee that you can be part of and learn BD that way. Beyond that, we actually do get a budget, and we can essentially choose networking events that we think could be fun. It's a good opportunity to go with your cohort and kind of have fun outside of work, but also to meet people and get contacts both inside and outside of law. So that's really, really helpful. We're also always actively encouraged to join client events that are held by the firm, whether that's firm-wide or department-wide. So yeah, it's really encouraged, and it's really beneficial and good to practice doing it. Yeah.
Definitely, thank you. And Spencer, coming back to you as someone who has recently been at university, how did you transition, or how did you find the transition from university to a law firm? Would you say it's a massive shift? Or?
It is quite a big shift. I found it quite a steep learning curve at first. So for a bit of background, I didn't work as a paralegal or in a law firm before joining Trowers. I went more or less straight from university, so it was a little bit of a shock to the system when I first joined, not only learning about the legal work itself, but also learning about how a law firm works as a business. So, things like time recording, billing, matter filing, things that might come naturally to some of my peers who paralegaled before the training contract, were things that I really had to learn and pick up sort of as I went along at the start. But what I would say is that the support systems were absolutely fantastic when I joined the firm. There's so many different people you can turn to, not just your supervisor, but other trainees, other people in your team, early talent. They're all there to support you along the way, and no question is a silly question. The firm's really used to having trainees. We've been taking trainees in for a really long time. In fact, some of the partners at the firm trained there. So the support's really, really good, and you do get a lot of training at the start of the training contracts as well, and throughout, which gets you up to speed on everything really quickly. So while it was a steep learning curve, you do get there quite quickly. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, this sounds like a big shift, and it's good to know that you get support. And sort of on that topic, Sam, is the life of a trainee or as busy as we imagine it? How do you work? How do you deal with your work-life balance and workload in general?
Yeah, I mean, I won't beat around the bush. I think being a trainee solicitor is a demanding job. Whilst it's really exciting, really rewarding, it can be difficult at times. So I think, planning and being hyper-organised is absolutely essential. And it's something that I've really worked on and continue to work on. So I keep like a really detailed matter list of like everything that I've got on, which I update constantly. I think prioritising deadlines are really important. Keeping a direct and open line of communication with your supervisor is really important, so that you can really understand the deadlines that are coming up, and that sort of avoids stress later on down the line if you can establish that early. I suppose outside of work, I try to make time for exercise and social activities, and I think setting boundaries for yourself is really, really important, so that you don't become overwhelmed and overstressed, because that can negatively impact your performance then at work.
Yeah, definitely. And when I think we increasingly see the talk about the importance of work-life balance. So it's good for the delegates here to think about that for the future. And moving on to talk a bit more about the more exciting parts of working at a law firm. Alice Ferguson, what would you say the biggest opportunity you've been given since becoming a trainee?
Yeah, I think the networking and the encouragement to do that for me has been a kind of consistent opportunity that I've actually found really, really helpful, because I know it will be important in practice going forward when you're thinking about meeting potential clients and maintaining client relationships as well. But one thing I'd say that kind of recently happened is I attended a 3-day tribunal not so long ago. And I think with it being my third seat, I was given a lot more responsibility to kind of run that, you know, and work closely with counsel, work with the clients. And I found that experience really, really insightful, because things crop up. You can be as prepared as you can possibly be, and then you'll go into the hearing and something is needed. So you can have some late nights, I did, but it was an insight into how practice will actually be, especially if you do choose something contentious. So I think overall, as you progress through your training contract, you can look forward to having a bit more responsibility, and you start to feel like, okay, I'm in it now. And yeah, that's probably my most recent favourite experience.
Good to hear. And Sam, are there any opportunities to go on secondment?
Yeah, so at Gateley, when you get to your second year, no matter what office you're in, there is an opportunity to put your name forward for the secondment at Man City Football Club, which, as I said earlier, is where I am currently and have been since September. And yeah, despite being a staunch Liverpool Football Club supporter, you know, it's been an amazing experience so far. I'm coming up to 3 months there. It's a really great opportunity to get involved across a wide range of practice areas in-house. And I think, you know, working in-house really does provide a unique opportunity that not every lawyer will get to do, because you sort of see it from the client side as opposed to working from the law firm. So you're sort of exposed to, you know, how your client will make like internal business decisions and their appetite for risk. And yeah, those are sort of their experiences that you wouldn't ordinarily get inside a law firm.
And Alice Spencer, have you had an opportunity to go on secondment?
Yeah, so at Trowers, we do offer some client secondments on a sort of case-by-case basis, but we offer to all our trainees the opportunity to go on international secondment for 6 months to one of our offices in the Middle East. So we currently offer the secondment to our offices in Bahrain, Oman, Abu Dhabi and Dubai. I spent 6 months in our Bahrain office, just recently got back. It was an absolutely fantastic experience. I was working in the international real estate team over there. So got to work on some international real estate deals across the Middle East, you know, with partners from all of our international offices as far away as Singapore, which was absolutely amazing. Yeah, great opportunity to develop, I think, both professionally and personally. So yeah, for anyone who's interested in that, you know, it's a really great opportunity. As a trainee in the international offices, you're not just sort of restricted to the practice area that you're sat in. You're sort of a resource for the whole office that you're based in as well. So I got to work on some international corporate and international banking deals as well, which was really good. Got to dip my toe in some other practice areas that I hadn't tried before. So yeah, fantastic experience, and I would encourage anyone who's interested in that to apply.
Perfect, thank you. And moving on to another exciting part, and a part that you're definitely all here for. Let's talk about the qualification and application process at work for working at a law firm. So Alice, sticking with you, can you start by telling us how the qualification process works at your firm, and can you sort of walk us through your journey of getting a training contract?
Yeah, sure. So my journey was a little bit different. Sort of the path I went down has changed slightly now. So I secured the training contract when just after I'd finished my third year of university. So I applied for the 2-week vacation scheme at Trowers, did that in the summer, and then off the back of that was offered the training contract. The firm then sponsored me to complete the LPC, and then I went into the training contract shortly after. The process has changed slightly now, so instead of the LPC, the firm sponsors candidates to do the SQE and the GDL as well if you haven't done a law degree. So it's slightly changed, but then you will follow that up with the 2-year training contract. You don't necessarily have to apply through the vacation scheme route as well. You can apply directly for a training contract, and we do offer solicitor apprenticeships as well, so that's an alternative route. But yeah, that's sort of the general process to get into the training contract stage. And then as for qualification itself, It's a process I'm going through at the moment, actually, so it's quite nerve-wracking. But essentially, when you get to your fourth seat, the firm will put out a list of all of the internal roles that you can apply for as a solicitor approaching qualification, and you can select basically which roles you want to apply for and submit a cover letter to the ones you're interested in. You'll then go through an interview with the relevant department and hopefully be offered the role at the end. So yeah, we do have quite good retention of our trainees. We really recruit to retain, so you know, we try to offer all the trainees roles in the departments that they're hoping for, but obviously it is based on business needs, so it's worth, you know, keeping open channels of communications with the departments that you're interested qualifying in well before that jobs list comes out, and then hopefully everyone can get the result that they're happy with.
Thank you so much. And like one of our most common questions at LCN, and I'm sure trainees and recruiters get it as well, is how many firms should you apply to? So Alice Ferguson, just to help our audience a bit, can you tell us how you chose which firms to apply to, and do you have any advice for shortlisting that list of firms?
Yeah, I think you've really got to think about what you want. It's so easy to get lost in, you know, the application process and trying to apply to everything, and then you end up sending multiple generic applications, and it's very easy for them not to go anywhere. So I think you've got to think about what you actually want. Some people want the kind of international global firm, and they're happy with that. Some people like the idea of a more personal, maybe like a high street firm where you have a closer kind of community relationship. For me, I liked the idea of a kind of mid-size. I like the idea of having multiple offices and a bit of a presence, but also an opportunity to be in an office where I can get to know everyone and speak to people from different departments. And I also wanted something that was full service, because I felt like I was lacking a little bit in commercial experience from my paralegal roles and previous work experience. So I wanted that, but I also wanted the opportunity to explore private client if I wanted to. So I think it's just really important to actually think about yourself and what you're actually wanting, because you can tailor an application much better and improve your chances.
Thank you. And another big one is choosing your practice area, and something a lot of people can struggle with. So Alice Spencer, how do you sort of work out which departments / practice areas you might be interested in as a candidate?
I think it's really important to, you know, keep an open mind. When you go into the training contract, a lot of the time the seat allocation will be based on sort of the needs of the business and which departments need trainees at that point. So I don't think it's necessarily, you know, super important to be dead set on an area as an applicant. I would definitely say in your applications, you know, if you do have any interests or prior experience, make that clear. But I think firms will be really happy, you know, if you go into it with an open mind and happy to just, you know, get stuck in regardless of the practice area that you're allocated, then yeah, I think they'll be more than happy with that. Enthusiasm is really key, and I think there's something to be learned from any seat that you're in, really, any department, and connections to be made within the firm, whichever team you end up sat in a particular seat. So yeah, I would definitely encourage you to keep an open mind and speak to as many people as you can as well at different firms, and get a real feel for it that way. You know, if you're on a vacation scheme, you know, speak to trainees in different departments, see how they found it, you know, hear their anecdotal experiences. And yeah, that's what I would say. But don't feel like you have to, you know where you want to qualify before you've even applied to the firm, because I think being open-minded is a great starting point.
Yeah, and sort of sticking with you, this question is pretty related to what you just said, but once you're, for example, become a trainee, how do you choose your seats then? And do you have to keep an open mind throughout the process with each seat, or?
Yeah, I would say, again, yeah, you do sort of have to be open-minded, really. How the seat allocation works for us, and I assume it's the same at a lot of firms as well, when you're approximately at the halfway point of a seat, so about 3 months in, we'll have a chat with a member of the early talent team who will ask us, you know, how our current seat's going, how we're finding it, but also maybe where we'd like to go next, and we give our like top 3 preferences on which teams we'd be interested in. As I said before, the seats are allocated on business need primarily, but the early talent team do their best to sort of marry everyone up with their preferences, and they work really hard to sort of matchmake everyone with the right teams. Sometimes you won't necessarily get the options at the top of your list, but as I said before, just stay open-minded and enthusiastic, and be open to learning in any seat that you end up in. I know some trainees that have ended up being allocated seats that weren't on their list of preferences and then ended up qualifying there in the end, so you never know what you're going to like until you get stuck in. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you. I think that's a great answer. And while we're on the topic of commonly asked questions, something every candidate wonders at some point is, what sort of experience does a law firm look for? Sam, in terms of work experience, do you need legal experience, or is non-legal experience also very much suitable?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is no, you don't need legal experience. I mean, look, if you can get legal experience, then great, like it will be valuable, but it certainly shouldn't be seen as a barrier or as a prerequisite to getting into the profession. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't have any legal experience when I applied for my training contract. I'd never set foot in a law firm in my life. But I think there are so many skills that you can gain outside of the legal profession that are so transferable to being a lawyer. So things like teamwork, leadership, communication skills are all things that can be learned outside of law in a variety of different sectors. So for example, if you work in hospitality or retail or anything like that, you can start to develop those skills there and then transfer them into law. I suppose other skills like accuracy and like attention to detail, accuracy, things like that can be picked up from various different roles.
Yeah, and we'll come back to speak about skills law firms look for in a bit. But we also always hear about how to make your application stand out, which is quite a big one. Alice Spencer, how can candidates do that, and what would you say made your application stand out?
I think it's a really tricky question. I don't think there's any particular big knockout feature that made my application stand out. What I would say to anyone applying is, firms I don't think are looking for world record holders or Olympic gold medalists or anything crazy like that. But I think they are really looking for people with potential. So, as Sam said, sort of demonstrating those skills that the firms are looking for, and that doesn't have to be through legal experience, non-legal experience, things like volunteering, part-time jobs, sports teams, things like that are all going to make a great application. And I think if it's experiences that you're passionate about and interested in, that passion will shine through in your application and make it a real standout. I think as well, tailoring your application and really researching the firm that you're applying to, you'd be surprised how many people fall at that hurdle. One tip I heard, which seems to do the rounds every application season, is if you covered up the name of the firm in your application answer, or change it to the name of other firm, would it still make sense? If so, your application answer might be a little bit too generic. You really want to tailor it and make it specific to that firm. So that's another tip I would give. And then it sounds really obvious, but just making sure your application's really clear and easy to read. The recruitment teams across all the different firms will be reading hundreds, if not thousands, of applications every year. So there's no need to use overly flowery language or anything like that. And write War and Peace. You just set it out nice and clearly why you want to work at the firm, why law. Make it really, really clear. And I think that will make your application go straight in the yes pile, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. And with applications, of course, come the inevitable rejections. And Alice Ferguson, have you faced any significant rejections or setbacks, and how would you say you've handled them?
I faced so much rejection and so many setbacks. I've walked out of interviews, I'm really not happy with how it went, and I'm sometimes embarrassed. I'm like, oh God, why did I give that answer? But you know what? It's part of the process, and it's all a learning curve. I think I've also thought I really wanted to do something, tried it, been lucky enough to maybe get a legal job in it or do some voluntary work and realised, oh, it's not for me. which can sometimes feel like a setback because you have an idea and then it's, you know, where do you go from here? But at the same time, I've also turned down offers. I've also, you know, turned down roles because I felt like it wasn't right for me. It's all just part of the journey, and it can be really, really difficult, and it can feel overwhelming when you're first trying to get into law, but just have faith and see it as practice if you do feel like you've just faced a setback.
Yeah, thank you. And moving on to offer even more advice to our attendees today, Anna Spencer, what's one thing you would do differently during university and one thing you would do again?
Do differently. It's quite sort of specific to me, my circumstances, but as part of my undergraduate degree, we had the opportunity to study abroad for a year, and I just didn't really think it would be relevant to me or helpful to me at all, and I sort of let the opportunity pass me by, but I really wish now I'd taken up that opportunity. Having worked abroad for 6 months and, you know, experienced a different jurisdiction and a different culture, I really wish I'd sort of made more of that opportunity at undergraduate level as well. Certainly working in an international law firm, you know, we have clients from all over the world, and so being able to, you know, just relate to them on some level or have an understanding of their culture through having lived in another country would be really useful, and I'd encourage anyone who has that opportunity. I know not everyone does, but if you do have that opportunity, to make the most of it. The legal world's also quite a small place, so you never know when you might cross paths with some of the connections you make in another country again. So that's something I would do differently. In terms of what I would do the same, I think in my third year of university, you know, I really sort of took every opportunity that came my way. I think just because I was sort of scared about the whole training contract application process, so I wanted to cram as much onto my CV as possible at the time, but I am really glad that I did that. You know, even small things like peer mentoring schemes at university, volunteering, society committees, I really just threw myself into anything and everything that I could, and I think aside from, you know, having something to put on my CV, those experiences really helped me develop the soft skills that I needed to become a good, or well, hopefully a good trainee, or at least a good prospective trainee. So yeah, if there's any opportunities that come your way and you feel like you have the capacity to take them on, even if they're not legal opportunities, I'd just encourage you to go for it and build those skills.
Great advice, thank you. And we keep hearing about core skills like communication, attention to detail. We sort of touched on that a bit earlier. But Sam, are there any, from your observation, like any specific skills that the firms or qualities that firms are really like looking for, or like feel quite essential, or you might not think about them at first?
Yeah, well, I suppose a big one is, and I know it's a buzzword and you'll hear it all the time, but commercial awareness. I think it's like, I got sick of hearing it, to be honest, by the end of the application process, but it's so important because I think firms are really looking for individuals that understand how things in the outside world are going to affect both their clients and also them as a firm, and the risks and opportunities that come with those. So that's a big one. Other skills, I think, I mentioned before, attention to detail, really, really important. Being adaptable, being resilient, because you know, priorities can change very quickly as a trainee. Strong interpersonal skills are, of course, really, really important to build trust, both with other fee earners and also with clients. And I suppose another one that's maybe not spoken about so much is I think law firms are looking for individuals that they can just get on with. You know, are you someone that I can sit next to every day and just work with? And I think that's a really sort of underrated aspect, quality of a person. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And Alice Ferguson, to come back to you, if you were sitting in the audience today as an aspiring solicitor, what would you focus on, like right now, to give yourself, I guess, the best shot of success?
I think it's similar to what Alice was saying earlier about being open-minded, especially in terms of what you want from your future career. Be open to try new things. I also think getting experience where you can is important, and like you said, it doesn't have to be legal. I think it can be really difficult to get your foot in the door with your first legal job, and you're kind of there with a CV and you feel like there's a lot of competition, and I suppose there is, I was similar. I started just trying and doing voluntary work, even if it wasn't necessarily legal, just within some kind of similar field that I was interested in. So at least you have something tangible to talk about and show, and you're still building on skills that are going to be relevant for your future. So yeah, I just think try new things, say yes to things. Obviously it's important to have rest as well. You'll be studying and doing exams, but just try and, you know, try new things.
Perfect, thank you. And finally, starting to think about, you know, the future and what a few future trainees in the audience can expect. Sticking with you, Alice,
Yeah.
can you tell us what the skills you need to be a successful solicitor might change in the future, and would you say, you know, they're changing already?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you need to be successful and to be a good lawyer, or hopefully a good lawyer, yeah, it's going to change. It's going to, I mean, in any job, you know. For instance, AI, you know, it's a buzzword. It's very much part of law now. It's going to stay. So it's really important, if you want to be efficient and I think be good in practice, to be open and adaptable and flexible and be willing to learn new skills. I mean, I've even seen some minor changes. My first legal job, I was working from files, and I actually missed them, by the way. They were good. And now it's all computer. So yeah, there's constant changes, especially with technology. But I also think it's important to remind yourself that some skills will always be relevant. Interpersonal skills, like you were saying, communication, not just with your team, but with clients. Obviously, literacy skills are important. But yeah, I think you've just got to be adaptable. And when I've spoken to people who I work with who are more senior, their training contracts looked and sounded very different to what we're in today. So yeah, just try and be flexible.
Yeah, and on the technology talk, and of course it wouldn't be a legal careers event if we don't touch on AI. Sam, how do you expect AI to change the role of a trainee, and, you know, has it changed the role already?
Yeah, I mean, since joining Gateley almost 2 years ago, I've seen a big increase in the use of AI. I mean, I barely used any when I first started, and I use it almost every day now, just for small things, I suppose, usually. But yeah, I mean, I think AI is really good if it's used properly. I don't think it will change the role of a trainee too much, other than shifting more rewarding and high value tasks on the trainee. So AI is really good at sort of speeding up, you know, laborious tasks, such as, I don't know, like I used it this morning, for example, to try and find the corporate information of a US company, which can be notoriously difficult to find. So I just put it into Copilot and it was done within seconds. I suppose the one caveat with that, and you'll be told all the time, is don't rely on the answer it gives you. So it's great as a starting point, but you always have to go and check it. So yeah, I think it is a useful tool, and it will become an even more useful tool as it progresses. But yeah, yeah, you can see the potential there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we might have some time for some audience questions. If we can pop the questions on the screen, please. And there we go. Let's have a look. Yeah, let's go with the first one. Are you ever able to work on international cases, or are the cases you work on predominantly based on conflicts in around Manchester? Does anyone have any thoughts on that one?
I think predominantly, in my experience, I've worked mainly with UK companies, but I agree there was some American work we did, and it is notoriously difficult to find the information. I think we're quite spoilt in the UK. There are a lot of kind of places where it's just a central source of information, and yeah, it can be difficult when you're trying to find information on other companies in other countries, so that's something to be mindful of.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I thought that was quite an interesting one. What is one key thing your firm looks for in a trainee that may be different to any other law firm?
I need to think about that one. It's a tricky one.
I think, sorry to speak again, but I found, and it's something that I actually, it kind of made me want to train with Hadaway, is I just found, even in the assessment centre, people were very nice and obviously different in their various ways, but generally just quite nice people. And I think I met someone that you trained with there, and we're still in touch. And yeah, that was something that I found very appealing, because obviously you're trying to build other skills as well. But if you can work along a team of nice people, you feel more comfortable asking questions, you feel like you're in more of a supportive environment. So that's one thing I've noticed anyway.
Great, thank you. And I see there's a question on pro bono work, which I quite like. Has anyone from the panel been involved in pro bono work as a trainee? And if you have, you know, how important is it?
I've had a little bit of involvement in it as a trainee. Within the firm we have on our intranet, you know, pro bono opportunities that anyone can get involved in. It's sort of a list that's regularly updated every few weeks or so with any opportunities and you know which practice area those opportunities relate to. So it is really encouraged, and it forms part of our sort of wider contribution hours at Trowers. Didn't mean to rhyme that there, but it's something that's looked at, you know, at things in things like appraisals. So yeah, it's very much encouraged at the firm. There's lots of opportunities to get involved in. Those opportunities are, I would say, more for qualified solicitors, but I have worked on some pro bono matters as a trainee as well, more under the supervision of others. But yeah, I mean, if it's something you're interested in, you know, people are always happy to listen to you if you have a particular interest and something you want to get involved in, then yeah, you're encouraged to speak up and get involved.
Great, thank you. And Sam, I think this one's quite good maybe for you, especially as a non-law student and slash career changer. Is there anything you would have done differently back then when you were applying to law firms?
I thought you were going to ask me the age one then.
No,
being over 30 myself, but
you can answer that one if you want as well.
Anything I would have done differently?
Yeah.
I think I would have done more when I was doing my GDL and LPC to try and get little bits of legalish work. So I know there are opportunities at the University of Law to get in pro bono work. And yeah, I probably didn't take up those opportunities as much as I should have, because I think they would be really valuable. And also making use of the careers advisory team at the university. I know a lot of my fellow students back then used them a lot, and they found them really, really valuable. So I think that would have made the whole application process a little bit less stressful and more informed for myself.
Thank you. And I thought as a closer, it would be quite nice to ask each of you if you could describe your trainee contract or trainee experience in one word. What would it be, and sort of why? We can start, Alice Spencer, with you.
I would say empowering is the word I would use to describe it. Yeah, I feel like everyone at the firm is just so supportive, and it's really bolstered my confidence going from a very nervous, scared trainee at the start of my training contract to being able to sit on a panel now. I think just shows, you know, how much the firm has helped empower me and grow my confidence over nearly 2 years.
Yeah. And Alice Ferguson?
Yeah, I would say insightful. I will just go to the older question. So I'm 29, I'm 30 in January, which is scary, but you know, I had work experience before this. I'd been in a different kind of job, and I kind of thought, you know, I knew what to expect, and actually it's always a learning process. And I agree, I think you just build your confidence as you go along, and you do things and you're really proud of yourself. And yeah, I just think it's always learning, and you always will be. The law changes as well, so yeah, insightful.
And Sam?
I would say fulfilling. I think I've been exposed to so many different areas of law, and I've gained knowledge in so many different industries through the work that I've done. You know, in areas that I never thought I'd be interested in, never even thought about. And I don't think there's many careers that expose you to that. So yeah, I would say fulfilling. Yeah, I think despite the fact of not coming in from a law background, yeah, I think it's been really, really valuable.
Perfect, thank you so much. And I think this is all we have.